This
Cool.
is an interview on Sunday, July 10th, 2022, with Gates to the Morning's Sean Meyers by Nick Perkel. Now, you have Walk Between Worlds, the sophomore album of a trilogy of albums that contains some songs from the Return to Earth from 2019, but this is considered the first. Can you explain what you're trying to share with the upcoming trilogy?
Well, it was kind of all accidental. So I actually, when all the lockdowns happened in March 2020, I had a bunch of gigs canceled. We were still doing live support for our first album. That got shut down. So I had all this material I was waiting to use. So I said, okay, that's fine. I had no problem going into studio mode. Serial is kind of like it was like a jigsaw puzzle of all these different riffs that I documented on my phone and on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So individual like riffs and themes. And so I jigsaw puzzled those together. We had two albums I had two albums worth of material ready. But then we ended up just wanting to do stuff live. Me and a couple of friends wanted to do something like live. So we did a live stream and we decided to do an acoustic unplugged sort of rendition of some of our songs from Return to Earth. So that's how Walk Between Worlds came about. We were going to play unplugged for a gig, but that ended up getting canceled. And then we said, okay, we'll do a live stream. And then we said, okay, we'll do a music video. And then it actually turned out to be an album. So that actually ended up being Walk Between Worlds. And so that was it's kind of funny because I wrote those two albums that have yet to been released, but Walk Between Worlds ended up just kind of interrupting all that and stepping right in front of it. So basically we got Walk Between Worlds and two other albums coming right after that. And that's the trilogy.
You have two different versions of King Obscure, Return to Earth, Chasing Shadows, and Chapel Perilous. Can you explain how these versions of the songs relate to one another and why you revisited them? Are they considered like light and dark versions of one another?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. I think, kind of like taking, I've always been a fan of like the Unplugged series, whether it was Aliens or Eric Clapton or even Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots. So I like that format. And the whole lockdown kind of forced us to do I didn't have my full band available to me and gigs just weren't happening. So it was like, okay, we got offered to do a live stream. So I said, let's do stripped down let's do an unplugged set, just like Alice in Chains did or Nirvana or whatever, or Clapton. And so that's how they came about, but we didn't know we were going to make an album out of it. But then we were bored, we were kind of like locked down and I didn't have a bunch of musicians like I normally did to end with. So it was just me and two other guys. And we said, we ended up making an album. We didn't even mean to really. So it kind of just happened that way. And so that's why we redid. So half of this album is like songs from Return to Earth that we did as an acoustic, kind of an unplugged setting.
What was the album's songwriting sessions like compared to Return to Earth?
Good question. Return to Earth was really different. I mean, Return to Earth was what I did with these upcoming two albums where I just had a ton of riffs on my phone and my computer. And I just did that all by myself in my basement, just kind of piecing everything together. For Walk Between Worlds, we were really hanging out and we got to actually like write this stuff together and live it, so to speak. And I hadn't been able to really do that until this week. We really were like kind of like, bunkered down and just like, hey, how do we make something out of this situation and how do we keep making music right now? So it was a very it was cool. It was a really cool experience between the three of us to kind of arrange the old songs and then also write these new songs that were also on the album.
Can you tell me the recording software used to create this album?
So that's our guy. He goes by MPMD. I'm just going to call him Mike because it's a little easier. He played a lot on the record and he recorded most of the album. He used Apple Logic and that I don't know what interface he used exactly. I think maybe a Focusrite. And the big thing was him recording the drums, like getting drum sound. And he did a fantastic job with everything. It was very low. It was basically no budget. I kind of he just did all the work as far as mixing goes. So basically just Apple Logic, really kind of a simple setup. He just had some good mics and that was it.
Now, is this something you plan on doing for the rest of the trilogy?
No. So the next two albums will be very much like Return to Earth, just more, evolve the next step. So I think we will do something like this again, though, after the trilogy is complete. Maybe even doing some, yeah, maybe even if it's an EP, but doing something like that. I think we will definitely do something like this again, for sure. But that won't be necessarily part of this trilogy that I keep talking about. So that will be later on.
Now, with Moon in the Midday Sky, is this an imagination of another world?
You know what? I like it sounds so cheesy that I almost don't even like telling the story. I honest to God truth, I dreamt it. That's the only time it's ever happened to me too. I dreamt it. It was in April 2020, and things were a little different. I didn't have to go to work. I was working from home, so I was sleeping in late, and my girlfriend was with me, living with me, and I was like, I told her once I woke up, I'm like, I got this song in my head. I had this crazy dream, really vivid. I should have went down right away to go and like record it. But I was feeling lazy, and I think for like an hour, and she was like, you should go down and record this song if you have it in your head. So I did. I went down and I just sang the vocal melody that I had heard. And then I'm not great at this stuff either. I'm a drummer really, but I just kind of laid down the chords on piano really quickly. And I was like, this came to me. So it was really cool. I haven't had something like that happen before. So it was quite literally came from a dream.
Tell me about composing the song Paradigms Fall.
So okay, that's a cool question because Paradigms Fall was actually written for the next, that's going to be on the next album. So that's why we call it Walk Between Worlds, because we got some songs from Return to Earth that we rearranged, some songs from the next album that we rearranged, which is Paradigms Fall. And then we have some songs unique to Walk to Worlds. So that's, why we called it that. Paradigms Fall is written, it's a black metal tune. You're going to hear it again in a different format on the next album. So it was written fully with, blast beats and gain and, all that kinds of stuff. So growling and all that stuff. So it's going to be totally rearranged. Not totally, but kind of reamped, probably is the best way of putting it on the next album.
Songs like Chapel Perilous and Chasing the Shadows have a dark and foreboding feeling to them. How did you layer in the atmospheric parts to give the song such a rich atmosphere?
I mean, some of that happened on Return to Earth, and we just took that and adapted it to this and kind of just literally just, okay, let's do that here. So some of that was a process of what happened on the first album. And then some of it was just like, we were sitting in my basement, like we would come over and it was like, once a week, we would just like go far out with everything, we would, kind of, see to do. And so that allows for all these ideas to come about. And I think that's how it was, how it really happened was like the chemistry and being able to like just three guys sitting in the basement saying, hey, what can we do with this?
Now, for Return to Earth, is the world you're returning to changed, or did you change, or is it both?
Yeah, both. I would say both. But it was, Return to Earth is more about a grounding, so to speak, and like a humbling experience. That's kind of what Return to Earth is about, being humbled and grounded. But I think, and now I think, you'll see where I'm really excited. All these albums, and this is kind of unintentional, just kind of happened. They have this story, and I think there's just going to be an overarching kind of story to all these albums where it's going to be almost like a movie series or, a TV series or something like that, where Return to Earth is the first step. Like, okay, you realized you're human. Now, what do you do from there? And that's kind of where the next albums are going to lead to.
What's going on in the cover photo for the album, and what was the artist's vision?
Well, he's an artist. My girlfriend's from northern Norway, Narvik, and it's funny. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt. I didn't even plan that out. I just got back from a band practice, and I was sweating my ass off. So threw on the first shirt I saw. She told me about him. She said, "I think you'd really like his art. You should use it for something." And his name's Kjetil Carlson, and he's from Narvik as well. And I just knew, I was like, this dude's got like coolest artwork. I was like, I got to use a point. So, and I did. And I just felt like, he has a lot of great artwork, but I waited to find something that really I thought suited the music. So I don't know what Kjetil was thinking. Like his work like is pretty consistent with what you see there. Like he's amazing. The one he titled the pieces, the front cover is Warmed by the Forest. And the back cover where the track listing is Wayfarers. So those were his titles. It was, what process he was going through while he made, I'm not sure, but he consistently puts out amazing stuff.
As an artist, tell me, how do you know when a song is finished?
Yeah, somebody else tell you. Because I think, that you can always, especially in the studio, you can always add another layer, or you can always, you can get really crazy. And the one thing I've gotten good about over the years is like not getting crazy with it. Okay, this is done. And the last engineer, Kevin Antresian, I had for Return to Earth, he'll do the next two albums as well. He cut me off with Return to Earth. I was like, let me book one more session. And he's like, why? It's done. So, and thank God he told me, because I was just like starting to lose my mind. And, so I'm starting to get better with that stuff. So it's hard. It's hard though. It's hard to know.
Would you like to go back to Nick questions?
No, I probably rambled on quite a bit. So no, I think that was pretty thorough.
Now, important question though. Give me your social media contacts, and how do people acquire the physical versions of the album?
We're on, it's Gates to the Morning for everything. So just type in Gates to the Morning, you'll find us. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. We're on Bandcamp, of course, and that's the easiest way to find our album. There's a lot of people who don't have Bandcamp too. And we submitted, I'm so rusty on this because it's been 3 years, maybe more actually. No, about 3 years since the first album. So we submitted through CD Baby. So that makes it available on a lot of platforms. So I can't say which ones exactly, but I'm gonna have to look into that. But if and you can always reach out to us through even gatesofthemorning@gmail.com. Email us if for some reason you can't find the album somewhere. I'll get it to you. So just reach out.
Final words.
I would say I appreciate everybody, because I see it now, especially as we're starting to release this next album and things are kind of building with it. I appreciate everybody who's supported this, this band in any way. And that goes for everybody who's played in it, anybody who's bought a t-shirt or whatever, really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was an interview with Gates of the Morning's Sean Meyers by Nick Perkel on Sunday, July 10th, 2022.